talking about sleep systems. So a sleep system is going to be composed of whatever you need to keep you insulated from the ground, from the air if you're in a hammock, and to insulate your own body heat. Now you're going to have a few different options here. When I say a few, I mean a lot. Let's get started here. To insulate your body, you're going to need something to put around your body. So some sort of sleeping bag, some sort of quilt, some sort of like wool blanket if you want to use that. Whatever you can get, use it effectively. This here is going to be a synthetic sleeping bag. This here I got as a Christmas present when I was a teenager. So I've had this thing for years. I don't think I've ever washed it, but I've had it for a long time. I've used it here in the mountains of Colorado. I've used it in the deserts of Utah. I've used it out on the waters of Canada, in the backcountry, in the boundary waters. And this thing's kept me warm on all of those trips. It's never really let me down. It's a 20-degree bag. It is going to be synthetic, so some pros of synthetic are going to be, it's going to be a little bit cheaper than a down bag. It's also going to insulate when it's wet a little bit more. My personal experience, anything that's wet, it's really not going to, it's not going to keep you that warm. If something's wet, it's just not warm. Now, survivability thinking, like if you drench a down bag, then yeah, it's not going to insulate you. But if you drench this, it will insulate you more than down bag will. So that's definitely one pro of a synthetic bag. Also, if you're a vegan or if you're like big into animal rights, they don't use animal products in synthetic bags. Now, you might want to double check that with whatever manufacturer you go with just to make like absolutely sure. But synthetic insulation is man-made. And that being said, we are going to go to one more con of this. It does not compress as much as down. This thing is going to be big in your pack. It's going to be pretty large, about yay big is how small I can get this bag. So kind of keep that in mind when you're shopping for a synthetic bag, that it's going to definitely not compress as much. But I don't know, maybe if you're going to somewhere that's like super wet and you know the bag is going to get wet and you know you're just going to trash it every day, like a synthetic bag might be a better choice than a down bag because it will insulate a little bit better when wet. So now we have a down sleeping bag. This is Sierra Designs Zissou 12. Now they do a kind of a cool thing with their rating system, and not a lot of bag manufacturers do this. So they have the comfort limit and they have the survivability rating. The comfort is going to be like, oh, I'm comfortable in this, I'm not getting cold. The survivability is just like it sounds. It's going to be like, okay, this is like not going to make you go into hypothermic, conditions. I really like Sierra Design and the way they do theirs with the comfort and the survivability rating. So keep that in mind when you're looking at these temperatures. Keep in mind if you're a cold sleeper, if you're a hot sleeper, with these temperature ratings as well. Get something from REI, go out on a cold night, get inside of it, see how it makes you feel. If it doesn't work, go return it. Of course, you got to be a member. Go return it and get something else that's going to work for you. But this here will be a sleeping bag style down bag from Sierra Designs. I love this bag. I actually sent for this bag when I was hiking the Colorado Trail because my other bag that was lighter, much lighter, was freezing. I could not get a warm night's sleep in it. So this thing kept me warm the whole time. It got wet, it got condensation on it. Like if you're out there for any amount of if you're out there for a certain amount of time, your bag's gonna get wet. It's gonna get wet from condensation, That's how I got all my bags wet. It's just sleeping in my tent, the foot box up against the tent walls. Sometimes you sleep in a valley and there's a lot of dew or something and your bag you get up and it's wet. It's just nothing you can do about it. But I never got cold when this bag was, moist. I just air it out in the middle of the day when the sun came out and I take a break. Some pluses of the down are it's going to compact a lot more. Like I can get this thing down pretty small with some sort of compression system. Other than that, it's going to be lighter, and that is also going to come at a cost. So some of the cons are it's going to be more expensive, and it's not going to insulate as well when it is wet. And also with these sleeping bag style, even synthetic or down, you're going to have all this material on the bottom here, and when down is compressed, it won't insulate. So it won't insulate that well when it's wet, and it won't insulate at all when it's compressed. So all this material down here is basically, in my book, in my opinion, it's wasted material. It's wasted weight that you're carrying, and maybe in the wintertime it's going to be worth it just to really, really insulate your body heat and keep everything in there. You definitely want to consider that, but this is kind of geared towards more like 3-season trips, so please keep that in mind. Also, zippers on sleeping bags. Sierra Designs has made the best zipper in the world. I never have ever had this thing get stuck on me. I've never had it snag. I don't know what kind of system they use. Obviously, it's a big zipper, it's heavy, but it works. And that North Face Cat's Meow bag, I would get that zipper snagged once a night, you know, maybe twice a night. And it's just such a pain in the butt, and also can rip your sleeping bag open when this thing gets snagged a lot. So zippers, I hate dealing with them, and unless it's this bag, and that's why I am a quilt man. Now, a quilt is going to be like a sleeping bag, but it's not going to have all that material on the bottom that you're squishing and just wasting all your insulation. So this here is a Enlightened Equipment Revelations quilt, and the cool thing about the quilt is I can zip this up in this particular model. I can zip this up down here, I can cinch it up with the shock cord over here, and I can make myself like a little foot box with this guy. So if it's pretty cold and I want to make a foot box, I can. There's also little attachments over here that I can have this little shock cord system, and basically the shock cord goes underneath your sleeping pad and it connects into here, and this hugs the quilt around the sleeping pad. So drafts aren't going to get in from the side. It's going to insulate your body heat a little bit more and keep you a little bit more snug. Maybe if you like toss a lot in the night, then this is going to be nice for you because your quilt's not going to be coming off you on the side and stuff. I have kind of like a stockier build, and I've never really had a problem with having drafts come in through the side. This is a regular width, it's a regular length, and weighs I think about 24 ounces as opposed to something like that Zissou that weighs about 37-ish, I believe. So the weight savings are huge when you're speaking about a quilt. Now, I've used this quilt up in the high country in the same places that I have used that Zissou, and it's kept me super warm. This is a 10-degree quilt, so keep that in mind. I am a very cold sleeper, and I have to have something that's really warm, especially in those high elevations. The higher you go in elevation, the colder it's going to get. You might be comfortable in venting this, you know, day one of your hike. Day two, you might have this sucker cinched down. You might have your, you know, hoodie on and your jacket on, and, you know, trying to stay as warm as possible. But this thing's never let me down. The quilts are definitely more lightweight. Not a lot of bells and whistles, not a lot of zippers on them and stuff. So same considerations with quilts with synthetic and down. You can get a quilt in synthetic. You can get a quilt in down. So all those pluses and minuses still apply to a quilt. Now, if you're on a budget, or if you just like camp in the summer and it's always 60 degrees outside when you camp, this is awesome. This is a double black diamond quilt, and I got this at Costco. They're about 20 bucks, I want to say. I have seen them on sale on gear sites for like 50 or 60 though. So if you can get some of these, I would get like a couple. If you're looking for a really lightweight, or not lightweight, if you're looking for a really low cost system to backpack with and you want to use a quilt, you can get two of these. They weigh 16 ounces a piece. It's going to be 2 pounds total for two of them. But you can use like one on a cool night, and then if you head up to the high country, you break out the other one and use the second one. Or maybe you just have one in your frameless pack for day hiking to provide a little structure and supplement your emergency sleep system like I do. So I love these things. I've used them here in Colorado. I have been cold in them. Like, I will not take this out as my primary bag in Colorado whatsoever. I would if I was somewhere, you know, hot, and if I was down in like Georgia or something doing the AT in the summertime, maybe something like this would be good for you. I've heard people kind of say they're good to about 50 degrees. I am a cold sleeper, and I really didn't like it in 50 degrees. I think that's kind of lower on the lower limit of it, of course. But if you're backpacking in 60 degrees, like, this thing's awesome. And it's 20 bucks. And if you want to get two and just use two and spend 40 bucks on your whole sleeping bag system, quilt system, then that's something you can do with this. Just keep in mind, it has its limitations, but it is a nice low-cost alternative. Now you're going to need something to put underneath your sleeping bag to insulate you from the ground and conduction. So you got a couple different choices here. There's lots of stuff on the market, but it basically comes down to a foam pad or a blow-up pad, or hammock. We'll get to that. But the foam pad, just like it says, it's a piece of foam. Sleep on it. This is a Thermarest Z-Lite. It folds accordion style, which I really like, so it makes it really easy for transport. This one here is cut down to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 squares, or rectangles. And a lot of people will cut these down like this, and they'll sleep with their backpack down here. And that's a nice like ultralight system that you can use if you want to go UL. Some considerations you have to make with this are, if you're a side sleeper like I am, then you're going to be in pain when you wake up. This is not cushy. Like, it has a little bit to it, but the more you sleep on it, the more that cushion goes down. And it's just, I've slept on this thing. I've tried to use foam pads. I would like to use foam pads. I love breaking these out in the middle of the day and using them for like a little break in the day. I think they have a lot of like secondary uses, like first aid uses, like making a splint. They're just, you get a fan of fire with them. They're awesome. I love them. But I just can't use it because I'm a side sleeper and I have issues with my shoulder that I have to have something kind of cushy to sleep on. But if you can use one of these, power to you. They're lightweight. I think the full one weighs about a pound. And if you cut it down, of course, it's going to weigh less. And then you can use your backpack to put your legs on, or something else. Gossamer Gear sells a 1/8-inch foam pad that's pretty cool that we're going to talk about here in a minute. You can supplement a blow-up air mattress with. Or if you're just like, glutton for punishment, then you can use that thing. I've watched some videos with dudes out there that use those, and I can't see how you do it, but if you can, then you're going to have a pad that weighs just a couple ounces. And you can double it up and make it more cushier and sleep with your backpack at your feet if you want to, and do all sorts of little things like finding really cushiony spots to put your shelter on with a lot of duff or leaves or grass. It's going to help you out as well. So kind of keep that in mind when you're using something like this. You might want to look for a campsite that's going to supplement the cushioning on this as well. But these are super cool, super versatile. They also come in this style that doesn't fold accordion. It just rolls up. I like these. I actually got this for free, so I didn't pay anything for this. Like, you can probably find them used for like $5 on Craigslist. If your budget is really low, then this is going to be a good option for you if you can use something like this. Or you can just take this and you can supplement your blow-up pad with it. So here, we're going to have the Thermarest NeoAirs. Now I got two NeoAirs here. I have an X-Lite and I have an X-Therm. These are going to be the large wide version. I am only 5'8". I'm not like tall, but I'm kind of wide. I have like the stocky build, and I'm a side sleeper, so I really need something just that's going to cushion me well. Now, that being said, I have tried the regular width of this. My elbows hang off the sides when I'm kind of like sitting there on it. And I do toss and turn in my sleep. I'm on my back for a little bit. I'm on my side. Like, I cannot stand having my elbows come off and hit the ground and getting cold. So I use the large wide version of this. It's about 16 ounces for the NeoAir X-Lite. It's about 20 ounces for the NeoAir X-Therm for the large wide. I love having the large wide. It provides me a great night's sleep. Just like the Shill brothers say, always invest in sleep, and I think that's super important. Now, this is an investment. These things are expensive. So don't get me wrong, there are cheaper versions out there. If you're only going to go backpack here and there, like, maybe don't invest in something like this, but if backpacking is your thing, and then it's a good investment. This is, in my opinion, this is the best mattress that you can get for the backcountry. I really don't think there's anything else out there. I've heard some good things about the Nemo Tensor Insulated. I actually laid on it at REI, and I thought it was pretty damn comfy too, but I already own these, so I'm not buying anything else. These do have lifetime warranties with them. Keep that in mind. If a baffle breaks, if something goes wrong with this, you are going to be able to contact Thermarest, and they should take care of you. I've heard, some people have good experiences. I've had some people have not so good experiences with it. For the price these things are, you're paying for the warranty on this thing, in my opinion. So keep that in mind when you're getting something like this. It's going to be pricey, but it's going to be a great investment. You're going to have that warranty that you can use with it. It's great if you're a side sleeper. It is going to provide you a really nice cushion to sleep on. This NeoAir, I got cold in it in Colorado when I was hiking into the really high elevations up there. This thing, I could feel the cold just coming up from the ground with it. Now, granted, I'm a cold sleeper, and I was also probably sleeping on like just straight dirt and not like duff or grass. So there's, you can take that in consideration. But I got cold in this thing. What I did is I just bought like an emergency Mylar space blanket at a gear shop, and I just took that, cut it to size, and laid it out underneath this, and that fixed the problem, like right away. Like, I was not cold the rest of my trip with that Mylar blanket underneath this. Now, when I got home, I was like, oh man, I need something a little bit more warmer in the future. And I got the X-Therm. This is a winter mattress. It is made for the winter, but I use it in the summer because up in the high elevations it gets cold. I've never had an issue being cold with this. as you can tell, it does have a crunch noise to it. Both of them do. People complain about that left and right. I don't care about it. It's just something you get used to for how light they are and how comfy they are. I just don't think that's a big deal. But going on, these are super warm. I lent this to my sister on a trip, and she said she was like sweating throughout the night on this thing. And it was, I think, June, I want to say. So it was probably like, 50s-ish at nighttime. And this thing is like a hot box. And it totally is. Like, if you're sleeping with this and it's 50, 60 degrees in the nighttime, like, you're going to sweat. This thing is meant for the winter. It keeps you warm in the winter. It keeps me warm in the summertime in the mountains and at high elevations. And I love it just as much as I love the X-Lite, and a little bit more because it keeps me, who I'm a super cold sleeper, that much warmer. Now, some cons with these blow-up mattresses is they're blow-up mattresses. They can pop. So you want to be careful kind of where you're setting up your shelter. If you're cowboy camping, you want to have a piece of Tyvek or a piece of, tent flooring like Polycro or Cuban fiber underneath it, or Dyneema, whatever they're calling it, to protect this thing. You can also use the Thermarest Z-Lite or like that Thermarest Ridge Rest to put underneath this and supplement it to give it extra protection and warmth. I've heard of some people in Alaska that's like their go-to is an X-Therm and a Ridge Rest. And that keeps them super warm in the winter. It's very, very cold up there, so it's understandable. But if you're doing like the PCT and you want to keep like your X-Lite down there a little bit more protected in the desert, you can get one of those Gossamer Gear foam pads that it's like a 1/4 inch that weighs a couple ounces. You can roll that underneath it. Keep in mind it's not going to cover the large wides as well as it's going to cover the regular size widths. So those are a few ways that you can kind of add extra insulation to these so that you can protect them. I always carry a patch kit. I've, knock on NeoAir, that I've never had to use one, but I carry one with me. You should too if you carry one of these, because if this pops, like, you're done. Like, you don't have insulation to protect your bottom half. You're going to have to, use a bunch of grass and leaves like Bear Grylls or Les Stroud and be Survivor Man out there. Now, some accessories you can accessorize your sleep system with. We have pillows. I love pillows. I have to have a pillow. I guess I don't have to have one, but I love to have one when I'm sleeping out there. This is my favorite. It's a Cocoon AirCore like Hyperlight pillow. I think it weighs like 2.5 ounces. But I love it. It's the pillow that I like to use. They also have this Trekology design that basically stole the Sea to Summit design and put it in a cheaper package. These are like $15 off Amazon. I have heard of them leaking air and breaking on people, so I would invest in the Sea to Summit if you can. But if you only want to spend $15, then this here will give you a pillow for $15. Now, if you want to go UL, or if you want to start using one thing for two things, you can get one of these stuff sacks that has this nice kind of felt lining, fleece lining on one side. One kind of cool thing about this is you can take your down jacket if you're not using it at night. Now, if you sleep with your down jacket on at night, are you going to be comfortable sleeping on a bunch of like dirty old dried socks and like maybe your hiking clothes stuffed in here? So keep that in mind. But I have a down jacket in here, and with that down jacket, it is super comfy. And you have your clothes bag and your pillow in one. You're going to save yourself some money. You're going to save yourself a few ounces. One thing I do want to say about this is it does slide. This one does not. It has a nice material on the bottom, and this one here does not have that material. So what I do is I take my buff and I slide it over here, and then it doesn't slide around anymore, and it gives me like a nice kind of like soft fleece material that I can put against my skin. But pillow for me is definitely necessary, and if you like pillows, those are some pillows. There is some considerations we want to talk about when it comes to sleeping bags. The first one is, what are you going to put your sleeping bag in? You're just going to put your sleeping bag in the bottom of your backpack, or are you going to put your sleeping bag in the stuff sack that it comes with that's not waterproof and has this huge opening at the top that will let water in? I don't. It's heavy. It's not waterproof. It's not worth it. I use a Dyneema bag by Z-Packs to put my quilt in. This is my favorite. It's super light, weighs under an ounce. You can stuff my whole 10-degree quilt fits in this thing, and I can double it down a few times to make sure it's waterproof, cinch it up, and I'm good to go. Now what I do is I use a redundancy system with a trash compactor bag. And these trash compactor bags, you get them at the grocery store. Just make sure you get the scent-free ones, because you don't want You don't want this Febreze scented thing against your sleeping bag all night, and then a bear's like, oh, what's that nice Febreze smell? I'm gonna go check that out. So make sure you get an unscented one. Gossamer Gear sells these just clear ones. You can get these bags from this company called Lightsmith that I'll link in the bottom, and they are Nylafume bags, and they weigh a lot less than these. This weighs 2 ounces, I believe. Those Nylafume bags weigh like ½ an ounce. And I haven't really tested their ruggedness, but I have used them a couple times and they haven't let me down yet. But anyways, the point here is that you have a redundancy system. You have a waterproof sack to put it in. Another one is the Sea to Summit compressor bag here. So you stuff your sleeping bag or quilt in here, and you throw the top over it. Where's the top? And then you just cinch it down with these little buckles right here, and it really compacts that sucker down. This is going to be Sil nylon, so it's nylon that's impregnated with silicone. It makes it waterproof, but you do have these little openings here, kind of that don't there's no seam that connects them. It's just pressure that water can get in, so it's not like 100% waterproof, but neither is like a Cuban bag. Like, this is going to degrade over time, and the seam taping is going to degrade, and it's only going to last you so long, and that's pretty much all gear. Like, all gear is meant to fail at some point. It's just a matter of time. But this right here, stuffed in this here, is my system. It's a double redundancy system, and it makes me feel really safe if I have to do a water crossing and my bag gets wet, or if I accidentally leave my pack out in the storm and while I'm eating lunch and it gets rained on. Like, I just don't ever have to worry about my insulation for sleeping getting wet and being compromised. And now that right here is like super important, because hypothermia can kill you just as easily as it can in the winter, in the summer, or the spring, or the fall. It doesn't take long for hypothermia to set in. Just picture yourself being really cold and trying to go to sleep in your tent at night while you're shivering. While you're shivering, your body is already trying to compensate to warm you up. So when you lose that ability to warm yourself up, it just goes downhill pretty quick. There's instances of people, taking all their clothes off and being found, hundreds of feet away from their campsite when they're hypothermic. It will start to affect your decision making, and it happens quick. It's just not one of those things you want to mess around with and you want to take very seriously when you're out there. So please have some sort of system to waterproof your insulation. And it's also going to provide you a nice warm sleeping bag, and if you want to throw your clothes in there, your clothes as well. Last thing we'll talk about is this silk mummy liner. So you can get mummy liners that can be hard over time. Going to get the bag and reduce its ability to insulate. So I don't really use these. I actually take these to like seedy motels that I might stay at while I'm traveling on the trail, or I take them on like airplanes, and they make really good blankets for airplanes, or like hostels. They're really good for that. But I've used them a couple times with my sleeping bag. They don't provide that much extra warmth. I wear sleeping clothes anyways, like long underwear. So for the weight, I think this weighs like 4 or 5 ounces, and the space it takes up, it's not worth it to me. But it might be something that you would like in your system, so I just wanted to include it just in case. Now, what if you're not sleeping on the ground? What if you're sleeping in the middle of the air, in a hammock? What are you going to do? I'm a hammock dude. I love hammocks. I use them for like 90% of my trips now. Unless I need to go like ultralight, or unless I'm going somewhere where there's no trees, that's my only reason that I use a ground shelter. So let's check out hammocks here. All right, so we're in a hammock. How are we going to keep ourselves warm? One, we're going to have either a top quilt or a sleeping bag, just like we would with our ground shelter system. But we're going to need something to put underneath the hammock or underneath our bodies in the hammock. My choice is an under quilt. Just like it sounds, it's a quilt that goes under the actual hammock. This one here is a War Bonnet Wookie. It is a 20 degree, it is down, and it is a full length under quilt. So full length, it'll go from your head to your toes to your head. It's going to cover the majority of your body. Now if you want to go a little bit lighter, you can use something like a 3/4 under quilt, and this is just going to be a shorter version of that. It's going to, for me, it goes from like pretty much my neck up here down to like my midsection. So if you're a tall person, kind of be aware of the limitations in coverage, but it's going to be way lighter than the Wookie. I think the Wookie's like 20-something ounces, and this is like 12 ounces or something. I think I'll put the actual weights up here in the video. But if you're not going to use an underquilt, you can use a pad. Oops, I want to say one thing here. If you're going to use that underquilt that's 3/4, you're going to have to use something to insulate your feet. So I just take my Z-Lite with me, and I throw that in the end of the hammock here, and my feet go on top of that. It curls up really nicely so no drafts get in from the sides, and I get to use this for camp or for hiking. So if I want to take a quick break while I'm hiking, if I kind of want to hang out and take a nap or something, if I need this to fan a fire, then I have this with me, and I love that aspect of that system. Now let's go back to what I was going to talk about, is putting like a NeoAir or like a pad in this hammock. So that's definitely doable. Some people actually prefer that system. Shout out to Tim Watson, because of multiple things. One, it might be more comfortable for them, and two, it actually allows you to go to ground with your hammock. So if you're doing like a trail, out here in Colorado, you go up into the passes all the time and down and up and down, and it might be a really good idea to have a sleeping pad with you to go to ground if you have to. Now you can do that with the little piece of Z-Lite if you want to. For me, it's going to be super uncomfortable. But if you want to have a pad with you, they do fit in the hammock. What you want to be aware of is the pads are actually not going to cover the sides of a hammock. So drafts that are going to come in through the night, and they're going to come in. Drafts that are going to come in are going to hit you on the side, and it's going to cool down your shoulders or your face, or if you're in there, like wherever is exposed, those drafts are going to come through and cool you down. And that will keep you up at night. It won't make you uncomfortable. Is it going to kill you? No, probably not. But it's going to make for some bad sleep. To mitigate that, you can get these cool little sleeves that you can throw a pad in, and they have these little wings kind of built into the sides of them, and they will cover your sides, and they'll cover you from drafts that are coming in. You can also buy some Reflectix off of Amazon, and you can cut it to size. You can make your own little pad that's going to go underneath your sleeping pad, that's going to come up and cover your sides. I'll link some Reflectix down in the bottom. You just get it off Amazon, cut it to size, and throw it in there, and voila, you have yourself a hammock system that you can use a pad with, that you can go to ground with, and then you can actually cover your whole body with while you're in the hammock. Now, that's going to be it about sleep systems. Next on Yogi's Trail, we're going to talk about shelters. So stay tuned, and a shelter video is coming at you next.